Kellyanne joins us in studio. You know, there's a new aggressiveness that I'm noticing. Sebastian Gorka saying, oh, Nickelodeon at night has higher TV ratings than
Yogi Bear.
By the way, I don't
think people under a certain age even know who Yogi Bear is. So the fact that there's a critical mass of people watching it and not watching these other cable networks spew junk about Russia, that's right. Tells you something.
Hey, boo-boo, picking it fast. All right, I think I'm funny. So there's this beatdown going on. So I actually put together this montage. I think you'll appreciate it because you have been dealing with this now for 6 months and about 4 days, and every network is so abusively biased. So there was this guy that one time was in a town hall with President Obama, and he just lost it. And it's sort of, you even heard this in Humpty Dumpty's voice when you were on his show over the weekend. That's what I call him, Humpty Dumpty, Jeff Zucker's stenographer. You are not responsible for the things I say on this program. And so we put this little montage I think you'll appreciate together.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
This is the CBS Evening News with Scott Pelley.
From ABC News World Headquarters, this is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
This is Meet the Press with Chuck Todd.
Today on Face the Nation.
From ABC News, it's This Week. Here now, Chief Anchor George Stephanopoulos.
I think Kellyanne gets the point. But you hear the breathlessness in their voice when you are on these programs and everybody else is on these programs, and it is a breathlessness. It's singularly focused. There seems to be zero desire to cover good news or accomplishments or even real other scandals out there.
There's no question, and my grievance from the beginning has been incomplete coverage. The media simply are abdicating their responsibility to be fair, but they're also abdicating their role to connect Americans with the information they need. If you quizzed these people that you're speaking of about the finer points of the healthcare bill, if you ask them what's actually in our tax reform principles, meaning what's information, I think they would fail the quiz because the questions are always about, will it fail? Do you have the votes? Explosive lack of success legislatively, and it's always presumptive negativity. And when I hear anchors, like one on CNN recently said to me, quote, the White House does nothing to help opioid crisis, I want to jump through the TV because I'm a person who goes around this country at the behest of the president with people crying on my shoulder looking for help. And he is helping. We're working on prevention and treatment and recovery and interdiction and funding, but also destigmatizing and giving people hope and heart on this issue. And it's like that across the board. You know, yesterday in the White House, before the president left to speak to 40,000 some individuals at the Boy Scouts, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. The jamboree in West Virginia was great. Don't wear heels there, Sean, if you ever go. But
whoa, you wore heels?
Of course, I was dressed for the day.
In the mud?
Always, 100%. And so before he left there, he had Obamacare victims in the East Wing of the White House, and they told their very raw, very real, very compelling stories as to not only were they lied by the previous president, you can keep your plan, you can keep your doctor, that was a big fat lie, but also just what's happened to them, how they've been abandoned by the system, and they just need help. They need help, meaning the premiums, the deductibles, etc. And what did somebody in the media say? Somebody from BuzzFeed tweeted out that the White House must have had a casting call for weirdly looking people. This is how they treat. Do you see what they say about Sarah Sanders? Do you see? And this is what we're up against now, which is, it's not just liberal, it's not just bias, it's not just anti-Trump, it's actually lazy. The facts and the figures just aren't there. The stickiness of the issues of what you need to know that's happening that day that affects you. They're not telling the veterans they have 24/7 hotline, that through the Veterans Accountability and Choice Acts and Whistleblower Protection Act that these veterans now can access care in the private sector. They're not telling people that 6.5 million Americans forked over money in taxes and penalties to the IRS rather than join Obamacare. They're not being honest with people that all the Obamacare websites have failed, that 19 of the 23 co-ops have gone under, that 83 insurers have fled the Obamacare exchanges with dozens more promising to do so. That's relevant information that people need. They cover palace intrigue stories, who's up, who's down. They have these snarky headlines. You know, I went from being jailbait to clickbait. Oh boy. They have these headlines for for ad revenues, for clicks, for kicks, I guess kicks and clicks, and it's not serving the public. The public needs information.
Obviously healthcare is in the forefront of people's minds today, that Jeff Sessions and a bunch of other issues, but in healthcare in particular, and I did see the president's speech before he went to the Jamboree where you wore high heels to the Boy Scout Jamboree. I bet everybody was glad to see you there. But, there's so many good things that are really happening out there that nobody hears about. But healthcare to me was the biggest promise they made, and the president made this point yesterday. Give us the House in 2010, the Senate in 2014, the White House, and we'll get it done. Now we're down to repeal and, a part-time solution and then work on it more, or not what exactly we were told it was going to be. Or the third option is if that doesn't all work out, they'll just keep voting little pieces of Obamacare away. That's frustrating to me. That's frustrating to the base. That's frustrating to every conservative.
It's been frustrating to the president and the vice president because they've done their job. They successfully ran on repeal and replace of Obamacare. Sean, there were no footnotes, there were no contingencies, and these senators who voted to repeal Obamacare in 2015 should think about that today when they're casting these votes, because the only two things that have changed since they themselves voted to repeal in 2015 is, number one, Obamacare got worse, and number two, we now have a president willing to sign it into law. And so they're going to go back home and they're going to face the fire. They have all these protesters here on Capitol Hill from the other side laying down and screaming, but they're going to go home and they're going to hear from the base. They're going to hear from the center-right people who trusted them to repeal and replace. As the president said to those senators at lunch last Wednesday, and I was sitting right there, he said, I've been here 6 months. You've been talking about this for over 7 years, pen in hand, ready to sign it. But I guess they're going to consider what's called skinny repeal and replace. We'll see.
Right.
But look, maybe Vice President Pence puts it best when he says this is the beginning of the end of Obamacare. You have to start somewhere.
Well, that's what the House bill was. But if we're going to repeal it and then we'll have a 2-year period where that gives them time, I'm actually fine with that. And I think that's one of the things Rand Paul wanted to do. I know that they can't score Ted Cruz's amendment, which we're told would drive premiums down significantly. What do you make of the back and forth? There's been a lot made about the president's comments. Jeff Sessions, he had recused himself. I always thought that was a mistake, but I've always liked Jeff Sessions. I've been friends with him many, many years. Yes. I mean, and he's a solid conservative, was loyal to the president. Is the president frustrated over the recusal or the fact that it seems like all we hear is Russia? We don't hear about Ukrainian collusion, Uranium One. We don't hear about mishandling of emails, destroying of classified top secret special access program, or any of the other crimes, or Loretta Lynch. Why do we only hear about Russia? What is the AG's office doing on those issues? Do we know?
So first, Sean, you're absolutely right. Allow me to echo that Senator Sessions, now Attorney General Sessions, is an honorable man, a man of integrity, who's been a public servant for decades in this nation and for the state of Alabama. And that just continues. The president is very frustrated, and there's frustration, there's consternation about the recusal. He made that very clear. I would say it was one of the 5 lowest points of the first 6 months, only because so much of the program runs through the Department of Justice, and also because the president just doesn't think it was necessary. Why? Because he didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing here about Russia. We've been doing this for 9 months. I said earlier, I could have had a baby by now, and we have no evidence of anything. It's been going on for 9 months. Adam Schiff spends all his time on TV talking about it.
I think he's had like 130 appearances or something.
He's been on TV for hours and hours and hours, literally 130 times since Donald Trump got here. And of course, when you're on TV, you're not under oath, but you're also not investigating. You're pontificating. He's not calling witnesses and gathering evidence. He's conjecturing with the rest of the liberal media that just can't prove to they just can't point to anything. And Sean, every time they say, as Brian Stelter said to me over the weekend and others have, but there may be something there, shouldn't we know? That's not the way this works, everybody. It doesn't work that there may be something there, so let's investigate, let's have a special counsel. It doesn't work that way. So the president's frustration is the recusal, but it's also because with the recusal came more and more Russia. The president is trying to talk to and about America, and everybody else is talking about Russia. So the president has been suggesting that the attorney general do more to investigate what's not hypothetical, but what's very real. Hillary Clinton destroying 33,000 emails. Bill Clinton getting a $500,000 speech.
How about the uranium one deal?
Right, there you go. The uranium rights that came right after that.
What about Ukrainian collusion? Isn't that collusion?
I think it's important for people to know all these facts, just like it's important for them to know who donates to which candidate, if they're going to be part of a legal team. That's just called transparency and accountability. So people should, but the president has made very clear from day one, this Russia is a witch hunt. It's a hoax. He has nothing to do with it. You've got Jared Kushner complying. You've got Don Jr. has been willing to do that. People are willing to share the information they have. But look, I was the campaign manager for the winning part of the campaign. Nobody ever handed me a file or dossier and said, you need to see this. If I needed negative information about Hillary Clinton, I looked at Hillary Clinton. She was like a walking treasure trove of negativity.
It was actually funny yesterday when Jared said, well, after Election Day, if you asked me who the Russian ambassador is, I wouldn't have been able to tell you. I thought that was funny. Kellyanne, thanks for stopping by. Great to
Such
see
a
you.
pleasure.
We appreciate it. Counselor to the President.